All right, next game.
To the Midwest region we go. The 12:40 Eastern time start. Number 4, Purdue is an 8.5-point favorite over the 13th seed High Point.
Dave Essler.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk around this game. You guys were just talking about the talking heads in the sports media, and, there's a lot of stuff going on here as to, Purdue might be in trouble. And
now, tell us about High Point. Who are they? Are they a real team?
High Point, are they a real team? I mean, they played one team in KenPom top 100, North Texas at 72. They lost 4 games to teams ranked outside the top 180. So I don't buy the narrative that Purdue's in trouble. But by the same token, I've hated to back Purdue given their propensity for playing well under their ceiling and losing. I mean, let's not forget 2 years ago when Purdue was a 1 seed and Farleigh Dickinson knocked them off.
I think we remember that one here.
Thank you, Dave.
I think we do.
Dave, that's
I remember it.
That's helpful.
Purdue's done quite a bit of that. I mean, I know what they did last year, but Zach Edey's playing in the NBA, and they lost.
All right,
Lance Jones.
You think? So let me jump in. This is what I think you're saying: is you think the number's too low, but you think the sales pitch on High Point is a little too much. But you're not anxious to play Purdue. Meaning High Point's better than you might think, but they're not as good as people think. But you don't love Purdue.
That's correct. I mean, if I'm betting this game ATS, I could make a case for High Point. But if I'm just doing a bracket, I'm advancing Purdue.
What would you have said as your first number if you were making this number? You're the bookmaker. You're going to do the world opener. You wouldn't have made it this low.
Knowing Purdue's history, aside from last year, I probably would have. I wouldn't have gone double digits.
All right. Fez, what do you think?
So I gave this out to my clients +9.
Okay.
All right. So we just
opened at 9 and has gotten, I see as low as 7.5. There's 8, 8.5, but there is 7.5. So that could be where Fez is playing.
As a guy who's been watching a lot of basketball, and it's always dangerous because I'm not a scout and I'm not an expert.
See, I'm good. I've avoided that this year.
When I watch these Big Ten teams, they are at a level below the SEC. I mean, I am not impressed with what I see.
But if you look at the aggregate conference ratings from KenPom, but it looks like the SEC is about 1.5 better, maybe almost 2. And Big Ten second, though. Big Ten and Big 12 are right there at second.
Right, but that's all based upon the end of December because then conference play comes into mind. Now, one thing when we talk about brackets, and I don't think anyone's ever discussed this, we have briefly, the idea of stacking.
Oh, yeah.
That if you want to win a bracket and you really feel there's a correlation between you think the Mountain West.
There has to be a correlation.
Yeah, the Mountain West sucks or the SEC is really good or the Big Ten's down. Fade all the Big Ten teams.
So here's the concept, and you're right. This is something that I believe in even your bracket picking because there's so, like Dave, when you think about how good Florida, right? A lot of people are talking about Florida winning this thing, right?
Including me.
Okay. Is how much of your opinion of Florida is because of in-conference games and how much is your opinion because of out-of-conference games? I'm guessing it's 75% in-conference, if not more.
Well, it's probably 75% in conference, but the thing I love about Florida is they have no problem putting teams under the wood early. I mean, they'll run it up. They can play fast. They can play slow. They can win on offense. They can win on defense. And I think that's what you need to win 6 games.
Fair enough. But Fez, I think that idea of if such a big percentage of your assessment of a team is in conference, it's all contingent upon how good the conference is. And it's hard to tell for sure.
And I have a theory. I want to bounce this off of you.
Yeah.
I think that the greed of the NCAA for these conferences like the Big Ten to go from coast to coast, from Rutgers to Nebraska, all the way to UCLA and Washington, is going to wreak havoc on their teams with the travel that they had. So I know in the NFL...
So like the cumulative effect at the end of the year.
Yes. Now I know I probably way overstate this when it comes to the NFL, but you know what? These college kids are not professional athletes. And I really think when you've got kids that have been flying all the way to the East Coast and the West Coast for 2 months now with their conference play versus the SEC, you go to Texas, you go to Arkansas, you go to Georgia. It's all, a short flight.
So does it hurt the West Coast teams more because they have to travel back more?
It hurts all of them, but it definitely has to hurt, the Oregons, and the UCLA's more.
So, Dave, you're watching this stuff every day. Do you get a sense that these teams in the expanded conferences like the Big Ten the ones geographically far away are suffering for it?
Yeah, and I think if you look towards the end of the regular season, you'll see that play out. The travel teams did not fare well, but I think once they got into conference tournaments, they picked it up a little bit. They're in one place, they're not traveling, but I think you're going to see them suffer now because they've gone from Oregon to Rutgers to a conference tournament in Indianapolis to maybe a first round game in California. So
would you say the
huge deal.
travel for this first round game is the distance on that one of the keys to this, or is it just no matter, even if it's a short trip, they're tired anyway? Or,
Yeah, I think I factor that in, but there's some teams playing on 4 or 5 days rest. There's some playing on 12.
Now, for Purdue, it's probably the wrong time to bring this up because obviously the Big Ten tournament is in Indianapolis. They didn't go deep, and was in their home state. So probably doesn't impact Purdue as nearly as much as some of these other Big Ten teams.
Okay, so I've got some numbers on rest. So here's the surprising numbers, I think. So this is back from the 2000 tournament on. Well, I guess the way we're calling it, the 2001 tournament. And it's interesting. I was thinking, what are the different eras for the NCAA tournament? Because we know 1985 is 64 teams, right? Mm-hmm. I asked GPT. I asked a few GPTs. And the consensus was one, post-COVID, right, with Scott's default, which I think is right. Last 3 seasons, this is the 4th. And then they said the one and done era is a good one to start. And then they also said we went to 4 playing games, I think in
2011, yes.
Yeah. So I think 11, I think either the last 3 years or 11.
I like 11 better because I like to have
more
larger
volume,
sample.
Yeah. And then finally, the last one is the playing game. The one playing game started during the 2001 season. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an interesting place if you want to do that. Speaking of just 1 day's rest, 21-19 against the spread, 1 push.
Wow.
So the 1 day rest teams don't suffer for that next game. Now, who knows after that?
And most of them are the Tuesday winners that play Thursday, but there's only one of them this year, right?
Well, we have history because going back to the start of that 2011 first 4, which is when it was other teams besides the 16 seeds.
Yes.
So that's the 2011
like the 10 or the 11 or 12.
It's the 11 seeds now. 12 of the 13 years, a team that has won in Dayton has also won at least their first round game.
And remember, that's 1 day's rest by definition.
That's the 1 day rest. Yep.
Okay, so if it's 3 days rest, play on Sunday, then play on Thursday again. Since 2001, 18 winners, 9 losers, 1 push against the spread, plus 4.7 points.
Now, what's interesting is I think the market corrects by about a point for the fatigue factor, no more than that. Uh-huh. How can it be good to have just played?
Here's what I think.
Rest versus rust.
No, maybe. But here's what I think. Whenever there's a rest issue that people talk about, the team always seems to overcome it. Like in the NFL, we'll be like, this team's on, but they're thinking about it.
Worst spot ever. Got to be focused this week.
And then the next week, I think they suffer because they're tired. So I think your
numbers showed that. In the NFL.
Yeah, I think your instinct. I mean, this was another example of that.
So I just looked it up, just going back through my post-COVID tourneys, the last 3 tournaments.
Yes.
5-1 ATS.
I thought it was 6-0 ATS.
6-0 straight up.
Okay.
5-1 ATS.
So it's even better now.
Cover margin of 8.7 points.
Now, one thing also
could be the kids on Adderall.
Well, the kids.
Why not?
The kids might have just figured it out because all of these teams just played in their conference championships on Sunday. All right, that's the only way they can qualify for this.
Yeah.
So we're talking about teams that are playing at a very high level.
Yeah. And most of them won. It's funny, as you look, mathematically, or at least this season. So we got 4 teams this season, Scott. You want to read them off?
Yeah, Michigan, Yale, 5 teams. Michigan, Yale, Tennessee, VCU, and Wisconsin.
All right, so those are the teams on 3 days rest. The market may think that's a big disadvantage. History, 25 years of it, says no.